show you. I want to talk about Taiwan, right? Because Taiwan is something that NATO left don't like to talk about because it exposes the insane ideology of the Biden administration, and it's something that you would think that independent media will want to correct people on because you got a lot of people that believe that Taiwan is like some sort of independent country. No, Taiwan is part of China. It is something that we acknowledge as part of China, and I want to talk about United States strategy on Taiwan and why these neocons are ridiculous when they say China is being exploratory. You have Kevin McCarthy who's scheduled. Let me pull that up. You have Kevin McCarthy that's scheduled to visit Taiwan as well. Let me pull that up. So showing how we are truly a uniparty, the same way that Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan, Kevin McCarthy was like, I want to do the same thing Nancy Pelosi did. And you notice, by the way, the same people like Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert who had criticisms of Kevin McCarthy because they wanted him to be different than standard leaders, and they have criticism of him over Ukraine. They have no criticism over his Taiwan escalations, which is a direct insult and violation of Chinese territorial sovereignty and violates longtime United States policy that even the UN and many countries acknowledge. And this is what they do not tell you. And one of the reasons why I know MSNBC and the NATO left commits propaganda against Taiwan, because they do not tell you in their statements that the United States acknowledges Taiwan as a part of China, as the United States policy. You guys understand? So they go on and say, oh my God, China may invade Taiwan. Yeah, we got the right to go to Taiwan. How dare China? No, we are invading China's sovereignty. And this is on purpose because the United States is playing a game that the NATO left and the media goes along with. It's called strategic ambiguity. The strategy is, yes, we officially acknowledge Taiwan as part of China as official United States policy, as we have done since the 1970s. So it's on the book that we acknowledge Taiwan as China. So, China can't bitch. But despite that, we're going to pretend and act as if Taiwan is an independent country and that China is under siege. Taiwan is under siege by China. That is their strategy. Saying one thing and saying that Taiwan is independent. Meanwhile, their official on-the-book strategy is we're going to undermine China's sovereignty on Taiwan. So I'll just read this paragraph because this is one of the few times that you see corporate media actually tell the truth about Taiwan, and they do it in a very unhinged manner. Because the argument that this article is making is that, hell, we just screw ambiguity. Fuck saying that, fuck having the one China thing on the books. Fuck recognizing that that Taiwan is part of China on the books. We should just go full-fledged. We will go to war with China over Taiwan. We should full-fledged violate China's sovereignty. You guys see the argument? This is the argument that this article makes. And they don't even understand they're saying the quiet part out loud. Now, I'm going to get to this part here. And they first explains that for a small place, Taiwan get a lot of attention. And he's talking about how this is such an important thing because you got separatist movements in Taiwan. United States is supporting them. Look at this. I'll start from here. That is diplomatic lingo for avoiding any appearance that the United States is cozying up to Taiwan. But don't worry and don't overreact, according to the White House. Maybe it is time to worry a little. China will interpret anything related to Taiwan as provocative. So my question is, why wouldn't they? Imagine if China sent people to Texas to support the Texas separatist movement. There are people who freaked out over a goddamn Chinese balloon. But the United States sending the Speaker of the House, the third in line to the presidency, to Taiwan to legitimize the separatist movement is, they're like, oh man, why did China why they view that as provocative. They will interpret it as a provocative, right? And it's especially if there are former meetings with the House Speaker in Taiwan. Some argue that it destabilized the entire region. But you can be forgiven for wondering whether Taiwan is its own country, where our allegiances lie, and why it's so hard to figure out the China-Taiwan puzzle. It is complicated. It is not complicated. Whenever you hear the empire and their puppets, their stenographers, whenever they say shit is complicated, it's generally not. For example, you hear people say this all the time. They say, oh my God, the Israel-Palestine conflict, it is so complicated. It's a history of complicated drama and conflict. No, it's not. Israel-Palestine is settler colonialism. That's Palestine, the West facilitated Palestine being ethnically purged and their lands being stolen by Israeli settlers. It is not a complicated issue. You should support the one-state solution because obviously it makes sense to have one state where everyone has civil rights under the law instead of a two-state solution where people's rights are vague. There's a social hierarchy. How does that even make sense to advocate for such a thing? So it's not a complicated position. The same way Taiwan is not complicated. China lost Taiwan because of Japanese imperialism. And now, because of long time separatist movements in Taiwan that the United States mostly propped up by the CIA, they then got into that country and said, oh my God, China is violating Taiwan sovereignty. Even though the United States have acknowledged Taiwan as part of China since 1970s as a way to establish and normalize diplomatic relations between the countries. So it's not a complicated puzzle. It's the corporate media and the United States government lies about it all the time. So, and then they even acknowledge it. They even acknowledge that if you read The Hill, if you watch MSNBC, you most likely will be misled about this issue. Look at what they say here. They say, but you can be forgiven for wondering whether Taiwan is its own country. Why do you think so many people are misled by this? Because the people like The Hill and corporate media, for the most part, omit the fact that Taiwan is part of China. Most Americans probably think Taiwan is as far away as Ukraine is as the United States. You guys know Taiwan is closer to China, like 3 times closer to China than Hawaii is to the United States. There's more claims that the Hawaiian separatists have than the Taiwanese separatists have. There has been no cultural connection between the mainland of the United States and the Hawaiian people. They had their own indigenous tribes and indigenous culture for hundreds of years before they were colonized by the West. Taiwan and China has historical connections that go back hundreds of years. The same way that Ukraine and Russia has historical connections that go back hundreds of years. Right? But the West completely whitewashes that. You got people like Matt Dessa said Ukraine and Russia have no cultural connection, which is a rank lie. There's no other way to say it. But anyway, let me finish this part up. Many nations, including the United States, recognize Taiwan unofficially. So this is the part where they actually tell the truth. They recognize Taiwan unofficially in order to provocate China. But then they continue, but we respect what is known as the one China policy. So you see how they explain it, like the way you explain like math to a child? Because this is like one of the few times The Hill is talking about this to their audience. So they got to start at the super basic part. They're like, hey, I know we don't talk about this often. I know CNN doesn't tell you this. I know MSNBC and Fox News doesn't tell you this. But we actually respect what is known as a one China policy. And then they said that means we deal extensively with Taiwan on issues across the board, even though China says Taiwan belongs to China. China argues that it has one country with 2 systems. What do you mean China argues that it has one country with 2 systems? You would think China would know that. They say, oh my God, China has a theory about how their country works. That's like China or someone saying the United States have a theory that there are 50 states. Oh my God, there's a theory that there's a judicial system. There's a theory that there are 3 branches of government. What do you mean there's a theory? China allows Taiwan independence. That does not separate the fact that Taiwan is a part of China. Period. So this is one of the few articles where they actually talk about this. And this is actually coming from a neocon point of view. Because they're arguing that China has been unreasonable. That we have this policy where we unofficially acknowledge Taiwan, even though our policy contradicts that. Isn't that lying? Isn't that something that would make a country upset? So this is the truth about the Taiwan policy that they don't usually tell you about. How the United States, 100% on every single angle, every single thing about the story, they are provoking China. China is responding to these direct threats to Chinese sovereignty. Now you got corporate media writing stories like this. China's threatened to retaliate in McCarthy visits. Now, despite the fear-mongering, this is because China, their response was weak. The United States, like they do all the time, called China on their bluff. They said, they literally telegraphed going to Nancy Pelosi going to Taiwan months in advance. And then China's like, please don't do this. If you guys do this, it would be a direct slap to our face, embarrassment to us on the global stage. If you guys do this, we must respond. We will respond forcibly if you do this. Please do not do this, you crazy motherfuckers. And then the United States was like, you ain't gonna do shit. You ain't gonna do shit, you pussy. I dare you. Yeah, we about to send Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan. In fact, I might go myself. I bet you're not gonna do anything. I dare you. You ain't gonna do shit. You ain't gonna do shit. And then Nancy Pelosi went to Taiwan, and then China proceeded not to do shit. China was like, we're gonna show the United States. And then China did fucking military drills. Which, I'm not trying to laugh at China. They had no other option. China is looking out for the global working class. A war between China and the United States would destroy the global working class. So China, like Russia and Iran and multiple enemies of the United States have done multiple times. They've been strategy of Nicolas Maduro, not engaged with the provocation. They back down. And the result of them backing down is this. China said, okay, you guys didn't jump the first time, now we're about to send Kevin McCarthy. We're going to keep violating your sovereignty. We're going to keep sending weapons to Taiwan. That's what Biden's doing now. That what progressives all for. AOC and progressives all vote for it. So, point being, the United States is lying about the Taiwanese policy. And if you're on the left, you don't have any criticism of the United States' direction on this, their direct attacks and provocation against the Chinese people, or just negotiating peace with Iran, Saudi Arabia, forgiving debts in Africa, and generally trying to create peace and stability in the world. That's extremely suspect. The same way extremely suspect the people who vote for Joe Biden, who do nothing but call out Vladimir Putin and China all day. The people who want fearmonger over the Chinese Communist Party, like some progressive candidates do.